Well, hello there and welcome to World News Program, streaming to you live from Algiers, the capital, on All 24 News. I'm your host, Griffith Zachary, and here are today's top stories. 29 Palestinians were killed in Zionist bombardment on the Gaza Strip with devastating damage in Khan Yunis and Jabalia. West Bank crisis deepens. 19 more Palestinians were killed and 150 Palestinian children confirmed dead amid the ongoing aggression. Also coming up, Algeria and Slovenia strengthen ties. Joint commitment to Sahrawi self-determination and enhanced Security Council cooperation. And Mauritania reaffirms support for Libya's government of national unity, while the EU warns of economic fallout from central bank crisis and oil field closures. More details right after the break. Hello again and welcome to the details. First off in our top stories, at least 29 Palestinians were killed and dozens other injured early Friday in Zionist airstrikes on the Gaza Strip. Palestinian medical sources reported that 29 bodies, including 17 from Khan Yunis and Rafah, were recovered amid artillery shelling and airstrikes across the entire region. Three Palestinians were killed early Friday in an occupation strike on eastern Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. The attack on a house in Abasan al-Kabira also injured others who were taken to Nasser Hospital. Rescue teams later recovered 10 more bodies from withdrawal sites and transported them to the hospital. Occupation forces have pulled out of Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, leaving behind a trail of devastation with bodies scattered in the streets and under rubble. The Palestinian civil defense is on the ground, having recovered 10 bodies from the debris and still searching for the missing. Sofian Kanturi has the full story.
The city of Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip is reeling from devastation following withdrawal of occupation forces. As they pulled out, they left behind a landscape of destruction, with bodies discovered in the streets and beneath the rubble of demolished homes. The Palestinian Civil Defense Agency reported that it has so far recovered 10 bodies from the debris and is continuing its research for additional missing persons.
They said there was a withdrawal today. We came here and my children to be reassured, and we were happy to be back home, even though the house had been hit by shells since the beginning of the war. We came and found the house destroyed.
Residents of Khan Yunis are grappling with profound shock and grief. Amidst the ruins of their homes, they sift through wreckage in search of remnants of their former lives. For many, only memories and shattered hopes remain buried under the debris.
We have lived our lives. It no longer matters. May God compensate us. But when you see children like this, I mean, should this child also die? What has he done? Who will be responsible for him? Me, his father? I have died. I died while I was alive. What more do they want than this? What do they want from us?
The city's agony is compounded by horrors uncovered in the aftermath. Witnesses describe the bodies found as partly decomposed, with some showing signs of having been torn apart by animals. This tragedy is emblematic of a border crisis in the Gaza Strip, where the relentless aggression has wrought immense suffering. The ongoing conflict has resulted in numerous casualties, widespread destruction, and a dire humanitarian situation, with the end of the year bringing no respite from the severe conditions faced by the region.
The World Health Organization reported that 19 hospitals in Gaza have been completely out of service since the Zionist occupation assault began on October 7th. World Health Organization's Mike Ryan stated that only 17 of the 36 hospitals are partially operational, but they are hanging by a thread due to damage, fuel shortages, limited supplies, and staff shortages. The healthcare system is facing indeed a critical crisis. Rick Peppercorn, World Health Organization's representative in Palestine, announced a crucial shipment of 1.2 million polio vaccine doses to Gaza. The vaccination campaign, starting on September 1st in 2 phases, is set to play a vital role in public health. During a press conference, Corn emphasized the need to prevent any new evacuation orders from occupation forces to ensure the campaign runs smoothly and without any interruptions.
On polio, a 2-round polio vaccination campaign is set to begin on 1st of September in the Gaza Strip. And during each round of the campaign, the Palestinian Ministry of Health, in collaboration with the World Health Organization, UNICEF, UNRWA, and partners, will provide 2 drops of novel oral polio vaccine type 2, NOPV2, as we call it, to more than 640,000 children under 10 years of age.
Algeria, meanwhile, has asserted that the dire humanitarian situation in the occupied Palestinian territories can only be addressed with a ceasefire and accountability for Zionist occupation actions. In a UN Security Council session, Algeria's Nassim Gawawi condemned the deliberate obstruction of aid and targeting of relief workers, calling these tactics an attempt to crush Palestinian hope.
تؤكد الجزائر على أن الوضع الإنساني الكارثي بالأراضي الفلسطينية المحتلة.
Algeria emphasizes that the catastrophic humanitarian situation in the occupied Palestinian territories cannot be effectively addressed except through a ceasefire. Therefore, we renew our call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire and for the holding of the Israeli occupier accountable for its crimes and systemic blatant violations of international humanitarian law. The obstruction of humanitarian aid and the targeting of humanitarian workers are not individual acts or mistakes, but rather a policy pursued by the Israeli occupier to kill the hope in the hearts of the Palestinians, humiliate them, and undermine public order in Gaza.
Algeria's deputy permanent representative to the UN highlighted further that the evacuation orders for Deir el-Balah, a critical humanitarian center, reveal a blatant disregard for the well-being of Palestinians and humanitarian workers. Let's listen.
In the
face of a situation where 96% of Gaza's population is on the brink of starvation and over 50,000 children need treatment for malnutrition, the Israeli occupier is once again issuing evacuation orders. This is the 16th such order in the past month, which has already displaced 260,000 people from their homes. They have all faced numerous challenges. But this time, the order concerns an area central to humanitarian operations. This confirms that the Israeli occupier is indifferent to the fate of Palestinians, humanitarian work, or UN employees.
Nassim Gawawi warned of a potential polio outbreak in Gaza due to Zionist occupation, destruction, and disruptions to the vaccination campaign, noting the risk of disease and epidemics.
اليوم نحن نقف على أعتاب البدء في حملة تطعيم أطفال غزة.
Today, we are at the beginning of a campaign to vaccinate Gazan children against polio, a disease that had been eradicated from Gaza for 25 years, but has returned due to the Israeli destruction. The same destructive force that caused the collapse of Gaza's healthcare system through the deliberate targeting of hospitals and medical staff. This situation forces us to sound the alarm because the likelihood of the spread of diseases and epidemics has become very high, including cholera, especially with areas of Gaza flooded with sewage, and the accumulation of solid waste due to the absence of basic services since the start of the Israeli aggression.
And in another related development, Algeria and Slovenia have called for immediate and sustainable ceasefire in Gaza, full Zionist withdrawal, and safe humanitarian aid access. This was discussed during a meeting between Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf and Deputy Prime Minister of Slovenia, Tanja Fayon, during Minister Attaf's official visit to Slovenia on the mandate of Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune. Both emphasized the need for international efforts to achieve a just and lasting resolution and establish an independent Palestinian state.
This decision, contrary to what some critics suggest, represents a just step in the service of peace, security and stability in the region. It adds remarkable value to the realization of a legitimacy that has garnered the support of most regional groups. The two-state solution, as endorsed by international resolutions, is a just, lasting and definitive solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
And in another tragic development, 3 Palestinian youths were killed by a Zionist drone strike in Zababdi early Friday during a raid on Jenin camp, and Zionist forces are blocking access to the bodies. The assault and blockade on Jenin continue with ongoing clashes and occasional explosions. The Palestinian Ministry of Health reported on Friday that the death toll from the occupation assault on the occupied West Bank has now risen to 19. For the third consecutive day, Zionist forces continue to carry out drone strikes and shoot at Palestinians in various towns and camps. Meanwhile, UNRWA announced that Zionist forces have killed over 150 Palestinian children in the West Bank since the start of the assault on Gaza. UNRWA Commissioner General Philip Lazzarini noted on the X platform that the occupation invasion is affecting tens of thousands of Palestinians in 4 northern West Bank refugee camps, leading the agency to suspend services in many camps due to bombings and direct attacks by the Zionist forces. Occupation forces withdrew from Tulkarem city and its camps after a 48-hour assault that killed 4 Palestinians and caused extensive infrastructure damage. The attack on North Shams camp severely damaged water and sewage systems, as well as homes and businesses. Destruction was also reported on Nablus Street and in the Belwana neighborhood of Tulkarem camp.
They destroyed the house, and then they entered the house behind us. There were walls and a road here. They destroyed them. My relative's house, Yusuf Shahada's house, was also destroyed using missiles and drones. They exploded the gas jars and the store and exploded the whole house and all the furniture. We started calling the civil defense and people to put out the fire because we didn't want the neighbors and children to get hurt. The gas and explosions. It was going to be a huge problem. We called people, but people fled the area, and many were being arrested.
And Zionist forces, meanwhile, have intensified their assault on the occupied West Bank, particularly in Jenin and Nablus, causing extensive destruction. This new wave of aggression comes amid the ongoing war on Gaza, aiming to further the plan to displace Palestinians and seize control of their holy sites. Zara Farjani reports now.
The Zionist invasion of the occupied West Bank cities has continued for the 3rd consecutive day. The largest invasion by the entity since 2000 resulted in extensive damage to infrastructure and vital facilities. Today's escalation in the West Bank cannot be separated from the larger ongoing aggression in the Gaza Strip, which has persisted for 11 months. This aggression aims to annihilate the Palestinian people in a scenario unprecedented in history.
Ambulance teams were mobilized, but the occupying forces prevented us from reaching the area. A car was burned by bombing and the civil defense extinguished the fire. Once the fire was out, we found the remains of a person, including a skull.
Observers believe that what is happening in the West Bank is more than a temporary aggression like previous incursions. The current situation suggests a reenactment of the encirclement, cleansing and extermination strategy previously used in Gaza, now applied in the occupied West Bank.
We do not want to leave. We will not abandon the camp. This is our land, and this country is ours. We are the rightful owners. We are the rightful claimants.
Zionist forces have raided Jenin, Tulkaram, Nablus and Tubas, along with nearby refugee camps, aiming to target resistance leaders and advance displacement plans, an inevitable attempt to shift failures from Gaza to the West Bank.
There is no difference between us and Gaza. We are the second Gaza, especially our camp, the Al-Manshiyah neighborhood and the Martyrs neighborhood. We ask for nothing but the safety and solidarity of our youth.
The situation in Gaza seems to be a strategy to buy time for the occupier. However, significant success in the West Bank will take much longer. The failure in Gaza and the resilience of Palestinians who remain steadfast despite the violence suggest that similar Zionist policies will not succeed in the West Bank. This highlights the Palestinians' unwavering commitment to their land.
To other topical developments now. Early Friday, Zionist occupation warplanes launched a series of airstrikes on various areas in Lebanon, including the villages of Sethkin, Nakura and Wadi Hamul in the western sector, causing significant property damage. Reconnaissance and drones also flew over Tyre and the coastline, while flares were fired over border villages near the Blue Line in the western and central sectors throughout the night and into the morning. Similarly, Hezbollah stated that it targeted Zionist soldiers on Mount Nusr with rocket weapons on Friday afternoon, confirming a direct hit. Earlier, Hezbollah reported attacking occupation troops at the Mutala site with a drone, confirming successful strikes. Hezbollah emphasized that its actions are in support of the steadfast Palestinian people in Gaza and their resilient resistance. And in a different development, Algeria and Slovenia have renewed their pledge to boost economic and political ties in a joint statement after talks between Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf and Slovenian Foreign Minister Tanja Fajon. Concluding Attaf's official visit to Slovenia, the discussions led to a joint statement highlighting strengthened energy cooperation and plans to expand their collaboration into additional sectors.
تطرقنا كذلك اليوم إلى التطورات المسجلة في فضائي انتماء بلدينا.
We also discussed today the developments in the regions our countries belong to, particularly regarding the war in Ukraine, the situation in the Sahel-Saharan region, and the latest on the Western Sahara issue. We also explored the future of Algeria-EU partnership. Together, we reaffirmed our support for the efforts of the United Nations and its personal envoy to reach a just and lasting resolution to the Western Sahara issue, in line with the principle of people's right to self-determination, a core principle that holds a special historical significance for both Algeria and Slovenia.
And on a similar file, Algeria and Slovenia have reiterated their backing for the UN-led effort to secure a fair and lasting solution for the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination, in line with relevant UN resolutions, that is. This reaffirmation was made in a joint statement after talks between Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf and Slovenian Foreign Minister Tanja Fajon on Friday.
We have jointly renewed our support for the efforts made by the UN Secretary General and his personal envoy to Western Sahara to reach a just and lasting solution to the Western Sahara issue, especially its right to self-determination. This fundamental principle holds a historic position in both Slovenia and Algeria.
Similarly, Algeria and Slovenia stressed the importance of tight coordination during their non-permanent UN Security Council terms, with Slovenia set to assume the Council's rotating presidency in September. This focus emerged during discussions between Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf and Slovenian Foreign Minister Tanja Fajon, who also voiced concerns about the Ukraine conflict and advocated for a peaceful resolution in accordance with UN Charter principles.
The positive momentum in Algerian-Slovenian relations is evident in the strong and purposeful collaboration between our countries as non-permanent members of the UN Security Council. This partnership is rooted in our shared commitment to the values of the UN Charter. We look forward with confidence to Slovenia's upcoming presidency of the Security Council, certain that it will be distinguished and leave a lasting impact. Algeria will fully support Slovenia's presidency because its success is also a success for Algeria and for all who uphold justice and international legitimacy.
All right, now stick around for the latest updates on the presidential election campaigns in Algeria right after this. First off in this file, Algerian presidential candidate Youssef Aouchiche pledged to build a state rooted in Algeria's history and culture, drawing strength from national values if elected on September 7th. Speaking during a campaign event in Bagai Khenchla province, Aouchiche promised to implement a cultural policy aimed at reviving the nation's cultural, scientific and progressive influence.
والتزامنا بالتصالح مع الذات ومع تاريخنا وبناء جزائر تكون قوية بكل مقوماتها. أكيدا منا والتزامنا بالتصالح.
We reaffirm our commitment to reconciliation with ourselves and with history, for a strong Algeria with all its components, an Algeria that knows its history and its glorious civilization. We will also continue our tour in the Wilaya of Khenchla to commemorate the martyr Abbas Lagrour.
سوف نواصل أيضا خرجتنا في ولاية خنشلة بالترحم على الشهيد عباس الغرور لأنه اليوم نظن بأن الوقت قد حان.
I believe that today is the time to rehabilitate and value the men and women who contributed to the victories of this glorious nation, turning the page on differences while working on Algeria reconciled with itself.
مع تاريخها جزائر متصالحة مع حضارتها جزائر متصالحة مع تاريخها جزائر تستمد قوتها من كل هذه المقومات.
An Algeria that draws its strength from all its components, which must develop and rise within the framework of a cultural and heritage policy, with the goal of revitalizing the cultural, scientific, and Renaissance influence of our great nation.
And for his part, Ibrahim Arad, campaign manager for independent presidential candidate Abdelmajid Tebboune, stated that Abdelmajid Tebboune's first term focused on two main goals: improving citizens' lives and reviving the national economy, which had stagnated due to previous policies. Speaking at a campaign rally in Sétif, Marad highlighted that despite challenging conditions, Abdelmajid Tebboune achieved positive results and restored public trust in state institutions.
كان بشر عمله في موازين طريقين موازيين.
The efforts of our candidate Tebboune during his first term were based on two main parallel axes. The first axis was the improvement of citizens' lives, and the second was the advancement of the national economy, which had entered a phase of total stagnation. Today we can confirm that our candidate achieved positive results during his first term.
قل بكثير من ال5 سنوات التي انتخب فيها إنما رغم كل الصعوبات.
Despite the difficult circumstances the country faced, it was also able to restore trust between citizens and officials, which is very important. We're seeing this cohesion around him at the national level, from east to west and from south to north.
جنوبا شمالا رانا نشوف هذا الالتحام وراءه وهذا الابتهاج إذن كلكم قناعة أن الرجل صادق.
You're aware that this man is sincere and loyal. When he makes a promise, he keeps it. You understand that this is about continuing the economic movement he had already initiated, as well as improving the situation of the citizens.
شرع فيها الأمر يتعلق بتحسين دائم لأوضاع المواطنين.
Finally, in this file, Algerian presidential candidate Abdelali Hassani Shrif outlined his economic plan on Friday, focusing on two main pillars: ensuring social justice and creating equal opportunities and jobs for the youth. Speaking at a rally in Touggourt province, southern Algeria, Hassani emphasized the urgent need to tackle unemployment and actively engage young people in the workforce.
على كرم وضيافة ونبل وأخلاق سكان هذه المنطقة الأصيلة. احنا عندنا مشروع اقتصادي، هذا المشروع الاقتصادي هو مشروع قائم على بعدين أساسيين.
We have an economic project based on two main dimensions. The project is founded on social dimension, which ensures social justice, equal opportunities and jobs for our youth.
احنا كي نتكلموا على البطالة، رانا نتكلموا على البطالة، لازم نقضيو على البطالة. شبابنا لازم يعملوا، شبابنا لازم نلقاو لهم فرص عمل، شبابنا لازم نشجعوهم.
When we talk about unemployment, we mean eradicating it. Our young people must have work. We need to provide them with job opportunities, support their projects with financing to start small businesses and get involved in e-commerce.
خلال استعمال الأدوات الإلكترونية في التجارة وفي مختلف الأعمال، شبابنا لازم نشجعوهم يديروا مؤسسات.
When we talk about unemployment benefits, we are referring to converting unemployment benefits into integration subsidies. We should not leave our youth unemployed. We must help them so they don't turn into immigration, drugs, or away from work and production. This is the second dimension of our economy, a dimension of freedom.
المهلوسات باش يتوجه نحو العمل ونحو الإنتاج باش يوليو شبابنا يا إخواني كيما الشباب اللي حروا هذه البلاد. ثم يا إخواني هذا البعد الثاني لاقتصادنا هو بعد حر.
All right, moving on now to other topical regional development. Mauritania this time has reiterated its recognition of Libya's Tripoli-based government of national unity. Government spokesperson Hossein Weldemedu clarified that the recent visit by Libyan official Osama Hamad, who is not recognized by the UN, was part of Mauritania's mediation efforts led by President Mohamed Ould Ghazouani. As the current chair of the African Union, Ghazouani is committed to resolving the Libyan crisis, reflecting Mauritania's broader policy on African conflicts.
موريتانيا متمسكة كما تعرفون بموقفها الدولي والمتنسجم.
Mauritania remains committed to its international obligations and policies, including recognizing the Tripoli government as the legitimate government of Libya, as acknowledged by the United Nations. We appreciate Mauritania's efforts in working towards resolving the crisis in Libya. We recently met with Libyan officials in line with Mauritania's role as a member of High Committee dedicated to resolving the Libyan crisis, which is led by Sassoon Gissu.
And in a different reaction, the EU delegation and EU missions in Libya expressed deep concern over the worsening situation in the country. They called on the Libyan leaders to prioritize national interests and de-escalate tensions. The statement issued on Friday warned that the fragile situation in Libya could worsen due to the closure of oil fields and disruption of banking services, threatening the country's economic lifelines.
We urge all parties to engage constructively and in good faith and to seek a negotiated solution. We reiterate our readiness to effectively support this process, including the restoration of Libya's path towards forming a unified government and holding national elections. We call on all Libyan leaders to prioritize national interests, reduce tensions, and refrain from using or threatening to use force, and to lift the force majeure on all oil fields.
To other development, but this time in Europe, Russia announced its control over 7 towns in Donetsk, Luhansk and Kharkiv in eastern Ukraine. The destruction of hundreds of Western tanks and armored vehicles within a week. Russian Defense Ministry spokesperson Igor Konashenkov reported that from August 24th to the 30th, Russian forces delivered 14 strikes against Ukrainian troops, resulting in the deaths of approximately 17,000 Ukrainian soldiers and the destruction of numerous Western weapons. Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova stated that the Biden administration is preparing to grant Volodymyr Zelensky full freedom to use all American weapons at his disposal against Russia. In comments to Novosti on Friday, Zakharova described the U.S. escalation as increasingly provocative, suggesting that it believes anything is permissible. And on this file, Algeria expressed deep concern over the increasing use of lethal and destructive weapons in the conflict zones of Ukraine and Russia. During a Security Council session on threats to international peace and security, Algerian UN mission member Tawfiq Aid Koudri called on both sides to exercise restraint to protect lives and avoid further escalation.
2 years and a half have passed since the beginning of the crisis in Ukraine. And here we are today meeting, and no peaceful solution seems to be on track. The situation on the ground is even worsening on both sides of the borders, with more deplorable casualties and more suffering amongst civilians. Mr. President, Algeria reiterates its deep concern over the continued confrontation and calls once again the parties to exert restraint to preserve lives and to prevent more escalation.
Let's catch up on more international news in the News in Brief.
The UN has urged the international community to reassess its approach to the humanitarian crisis in Sudan, which has been lingering for nearly 18 months. During her visit to Sudan, UN Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed highlighted the need for effective measures to ensure that the aid reaches those in need. She called for a stronger commitment to supplying essential medical resources to combat the escalating humanitarian crisis.
The WHO expects to deliver the first Mpox vaccines to the Democratic Republic of Congo in the coming days due to a severe outbreak of a new variant. The organization announced that the majority of vaccines will be allocated to the DRC, the most affected by the new variant. With over 18,000 suspected cases and 629 deaths reported this year, Mpox, previously known as monkeypox, has also spread to several other countries in Africa and beyond.
Panamanian authorities deported 30 migrants to Ecuador on a US-funded flight as part of an agreement to curb irregular crossings and reduce migration. The flight, which landed in Manta, Ecuador, transported Ecuadorians who have evaded a migration checkpoint on the Darien Gap route. Each year, thousands traverse the perilous Darien Gap jungle, which lies on the Panama-Colombia border en route to the United States.
A Brazilian Supreme Court justice ordered the immediate suspension of social media platform X in Brazil after the company missed a deadline to appoint a legal representative. This action is part of an ongoing dispute between the court and Elon Musk, which has also seen Starlink's financial accounts frozen. The suspension will remain in effect until X meets all court requirements, including paying fines of $3.28 million and designating a legal representative in Brazil.
Well, that wraps up our news program for tonight. For more updates, be sure to follow us on our social media platforms. From all of us here at All 24 News, thank you for tuning in. Take care and good night.